And on Tuesdays, we go live to the nation's capital and Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter David Fahrenthold at the Washington Post. And David, it came out since we last spoke that the Justice Department under William Barr was on a leak hunt and was monitoring contacts of Washington Post reporters. And first of all, were you one of them?
I was not. No, they were focused on three reporters who had been covering the Trump-Russia connections back in 2017.
Okay, so what's the status of that, and is the current Justice Department looking into that now?
Well, we just learned about it a few days ago. The current Justice Department sent the Washington Post reporters notices saying, that in 2020, under Attorney General Barr, the Justice Department had gotten permission from a judge to look at phone records of these Post reporters, and it had also gotten permission to look at email records, although apparently they didn't actually use the permission to look at emails. So we don't know if they're investigating that. The current Justice Department is investigating that. We don't know what's happening with it. We just know that it happened.
Okay, and what leak are they trying to plug here? Is this concerning any particular story?
Just looking at the timing, the letters the Post got didn't say, but if you look at the timing of the searches, they wanted, phone records from, certain dates in 2017, and it seemed like it encompassed the beginning of the Trump administration, when, if you remember, there was a scoop every 10 minutes about the Trump administration's contacts with Russia. Michael Flynn talking to the Russians, Trump talking to the Russians in the Oval Office. I think they were trying to figure out who was leaking those news about those contacts with Russia to the Post.
I thought it was members of the administration. I mean, every time I asked that question of various reporters, they said, look, we're not making this up. It's coming from people in the administration. Some of it may be coming from the president himself.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, there were only a few people who had the knowledge to leak that stuff. And I think, the most important thing is it all proved to be true. I mean, at the time there was all this denial, this is wrong, it's all fake news. It all was true. I mean, Trump even fired Mike Flynn, his national security advisor, over some of the things that we revealed. So, they're trying to figure out who leaked it. I don't know if they did or not. If you remember last year, there was a sort of a counter investigation. Trump had empowered this U.S. attorney in Connecticut to go look at the origins of the Russia investigation and figure out if anybody had broken any laws. That investigation, I think, has not concluded, but hasn't charged anybody yet. And I wondered if this was perhaps somehow related to that.
I see. Okay, there's also, as I understand it, and I'm still kind of vague on this, so help me out here, that there was an attempt to release some of the sealed material in the Mueller report, which explains what the obstruction of justice case against Trump would have been had he not had the protection of the presidency. Where does that stand?
So a judge has ordered, you're right, there's basically a watchdog group had sued the DOJ saying, we want the memo from inside the Justice Department where they sort of described what Trump had done and why they were deciding that this was not obstruction of justice and shouldn't be charged. So far, the Trump administration refused to release that. The Biden administration has done the same. A judge has ordered that it be released, and I think there's some sort of delay for review or classified review or something because it hasn't actually been released yet, but it seems like it is on the way.
Really? Okay, but you say the Biden administration has not agreed to release it? You mean
No,
temporarily or what?
Well, the Biden administration, I think, now that Trump is gone, this is one thing that's really surprised me. They have been very reluctant to release things showing what Trump did while in office. In my case, it affects the records showing what Trump did to funnel money from the government into his own pockets. And I think in this case, their logic, the DOJ, the case of this memo, the DOJ is saying, look, we don't like Trump, but there's a precedent here. We think we should be able to keep these kinds of memos secret. And so we're going to fight it on that principle in the theory that probably there'll be sometime down the road when conservatives want us to release something this secret, and we don't want to have to.
Really? Wow. Okay. That kind of surprises me, but I can see where he might not want the distraction. All right. So
it kind of reminds me of
go ahead.
There's a dispute over a part of the border wall down in Texas where Biden is continuing a lawsuit that Trump started to seize some land so they could build the border wall. Not because that Biden wants to build the border wall, but just because he wants to defend the government's right to do this thing that's being contested. So it seems like it's more about staking out, proper uses of power.
Okay, this the big vote on the Republican leadership is tomorrow, correct? This is the Liz Cheney vote?
That's right.
Yes. I mean, I thought the thing that I can understand about this is I thought that the Republicans were, at least based on my Twitter feed, the Republicans really hate cancel culture. right? But isn't that what they're doing here with voting Liz Cheney out of the leadership?
That's right. Liz Cheney has a view that they believe is improper to voice in public. She's been saying that Trump is lying about the 2020 election. It's improper to, it was wrong of Trump to try to overturn the election, And so they're saying, well, in the name of unity, we don't want her out there saying that. We don't want to give her this position within the Republican Party to sort of say that stuff. So we're going to cancel her and, send her back to the rank and file. Obviously, it's their right. But it just shows that the sort of cancel culture is just a way of saying, we should be allowed to speak, but, we can decide when other people can't. And you saw yesterday the guy who was the trainer for the horse that won the Kentucky Derby. The horse is under investigation for drugs, and the trainer was like, my horse is being canceled. There's cancel culture on my horse. So it kind of has become whatever you want it to be.
Well, beyond the term, I mean, McCarthy, wasn't he also critical of Trump? Mitch McConnell, what didn't he stand on the floor of the Senate and said this happened because of Trump?
Well, there's a really interesting dichotomy between McCarthy and McConnell now. McCarthy, the head of the Republicans in the House, he has always been very close to Trump, and he's somebody who has always sort of followed the sort of most extreme elements in his party. It goes back to the Tea Party. Whatever the Tea Party people wanted to do, McCarthy was okay with letting them do. McCarthy now is saying, well, they want sort of a more extreme version. I'm going to follow them. McConnell he spoke out against Trump, and he's been pretty steadfast in not engaging in this, not criticizing Cheney, not wanting to let Trump control what the party does now. They seem to be kind of going in opposite directions. Yeah.
Okay, on the vote recount in Arizona, done by this cyber ninja group, the secretaries of state have come out from other states saying, including our state, saying that there is no security there to indicate that the ballots are being properly handled, as in no chain of custody. And what that would mean to me is, just as an outsider watching this, is that what they're saying is there's the possibility that instead of discovering fraud, there is now an opening to commit fraud during this recount.
I think that's right. The reports you've seen from that are that they're leaving laptops open, they're leaving ballots out. I'm not saying that the goal of this was to commit fraud, but they are the security and the amateurism with which they're handling these ballots would make it easy to introduce fraud. I think that audit has just gone downhill. I mean, so last week they said they were looking for traces of bamboo in the paper on the theory that some fake ballots were shipped in from Asia. Maybe they were made out of bamboo. I mean, that's the level of analysis we're dealing with here. And, I guess they're going to announce some sort of conclusion favorable to Trump, but this is going to make it very thorough.
Is there a timeline on this? Because based on the accounts I've read, the count is going really slowly.
The timeline actually is May 14th, 3 days from now. They need that auditorium for a high school graduation, and then there's like a fair or something there. So they have to clear out pretty soon of the county coliseum that they're in so they can have a high school graduation there. So they are nowhere near wrapping up, and I don't know how they're going to try to finish this.
Well, you can't make this stuff up, as they say. David Fahrenthold, live from the Washington Post. David, thanks very much.